Hello, followers of the Branding Escolar podcast and the YouTube channel. We are lucky to speak with Richard Gerber today. Firstly, I would like to thank Impulso Educació for enabling us to get in touch with Richard, and Maria Latre for her time and dedication. Apologize me for my poor English accent. You can read the transcript or the translation of what we are going to say. Hello, Richard. In Branding Escolar, school branding, we try to help schools to manage their own brand, to reflect their identity in the full sense, essential features and values. What do you think about a school brand?
I think a school brand is hugely important, but I think a school brand, like any successful brand of any organization, needs to be founded on really strong vision and values. They have to be the brand. They can't project a brand that is insincere or is not real. You know, the brand has to have authenticity and integrity. It also has to remember that whilst for some schools, particularly in the private sector, the importance of branding is around attracting parents to the school, the ultimate customer in a school is not the parent, it is the child, it is the pupil. And if all we do is we put all our energy into branding the school in advertising terms for parents and the community, we're doing less than 50% of the job. Pardon me, because the truth is, unless our children buy into the brand, you have no product. Because if children walk out of school every day saying they're not happy, they're not learning, they're not enjoying what they're doing, they're not being stimulated, they don't feel of value, the parent will eventually take the child to another school. So my most important piece of advice around branding for a school is make sure you remember that your number one customer are your children, not the parents.
Nowadays, with the low birth rates and other factors, such as the crisis, there is few schools that are not pushed to do marketing, many in order to attract customers, highlight aspects of educational innovation that are popular, such as robotics projects, cooperative learning, use of tablets, and so on. What is surprising is that in order to stand out, they are all identical and they say the same thing. What do you think about this phenomenon? Does it not offer a caricature of what educational innovation really is?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to be very, very careful because over the last 40 or 50 years, we have adopted a number of what I call silver bullets, shiny things, right, that we think are what the future of education is about, whether it's robotics, whether it's before robotics when we first had computers or interactive boards on the walls or the internet or tablets or, you know, some schools now will probably be talking about artificial intelligence. You know, these are all things that are important tools of education. But they aren't the purpose of education. I remember a number of years ago having a really interesting conversation with a man called Eric Schmidt. And Eric Schmidt was, until a few years ago, the executive chairman of Google. So he was the boss of the biggest company on earth. And I remember asking him two questions. And the first question I asked him was, do you ever see a time where technology will replace the teacher in education? And I think this is pertinent to the question because of his answer. Because I thought he would argue for technology and that being education. And he didn't even have to think about his response. His answer was immediate. He said, no, never. And I said, wow, I wasn't expecting that from you. Tell me more. He said, Richard, education has always been and will always be about the development of the human being. He said, technology is a wonderful tool. It's a catalyst. It's an aid. It's a support. But in order to develop a human being, you will always need high levels of human interaction. No technology can replace that. And I would say the same thing about branding in education. The shiny new things are not telling you anything about how your children are educated. Education is about human interaction and human response. If I was looking now, my children have grown up, but if I was looking now for a school for my children, I would go visit and I would spend 5 minutes in the middle of the busiest corridor. And I would want to hear laughter, and I would want to see relaxed children, and I would want to see relaxed teachers, and I would want to see a space filled with energy and enthusiasm, because that to me is what you speak to when you're building a brand for a school. When I created the brand for the school that I was famously head teacher of, our vision statement was founded on 3 words: living, learning, and laughing. And the idea of that was we had to prove in everything we did that the school's methodology was built about celebrating the potential of life, building aspirations and values in our children, giving them an opportunity to understand the power of how living your best life could be gained through education. And that was where the second word, learning, came in, that we were founded on a principle, that we were building a culture that saw the importance and power and relevance of learning. And finally, laughing. Because again, the truth is that nobody learns best when they're under pressure and stress. People learn best when they're relaxed and enjoying themselves, and they feel the learning is of value and of context. So I really ask people to think about those things. The other thing that I think is really important was the second thing that Eric Schmidt said to me. Because I actually asked him about Google, and I said to him, what have been the greatest challenges that you faced in your time at Google? And he said, I'll tell you, our greatest challenge has been our success. He said, when I first arrived at Google, he said it was an organization built on our vision, our brand. And the founding vision at Google was to organize the world's information, to make it accessible for everybody, and by so doing, diminish evil. Humanity. There was nothing there about, look how many computers we've got, or the fact we do robotics. It was about a human response. He said, and what was really interesting in those early days was the place was filled with energy. People were coming up with amazing ideas all the time. He said, but actually the more successful the company became, the less we were dealing with our own vision and values, and the more we started to be obsessed with what other people were doing, and we tried to do what they did. And every time we did that, we lost a little bit of our own vision and values. And every time we did that, those were the times we failed, when we just tried to copy what somebody else was doing. He said, and actually my greatest challenge at Google is to keep our people focused on our vision, our values, and the understanding that we have the talent to deliver on that. And I think if we're really to establish a powerful brand in our schools, we have to remember it's about human beings and it's about vision and values, and not to believe that it's about the shiny new things.
We are still talking about marketing. A growing phenomenon is the competition between the schools. Although it has some positive aspects, families are able to choose. This competition with rankings put an advanced pedagogical with a personalized teaching and a heated swimming pool on the same level. What do you think?
Again, I think it's deeply dangerous. If all we do, first of all, is measure our schools by exam results, we're missing out on the potential of what a great school can be. I have been into schools all over the world with high exam results, and I wouldn't send my dog to those schools because they have no soul, no passion. They have no interest in developing the whole child. They are purely factories, like a battery farm, preparing children to take exams. And as soon as the children come through that exam system, many of them are not equipped to deal with the challenges of university or the world of work. Many actually have social and emotional problems and mental health issues. So I think the first thing is to remember that a great school is not just about the data. We have to remember again, a great school is about the development of human beings. As an educator, as a head teacher, and as a parent, I've always come back to that phrase I've used already today, which is, what do we want our children to look like as human beings when they leave us? So whether you have a heated swimming pool, whether you've taken on the latest silver bullet, you have more computers or more tablets or a faster internet speed, none of that is important. What's really important is how we are evolving the children into really good human beings. And at the core of that really is this philosophy. There are two core jobs within the remit of an educator, I believe. The first is to help our children to dream. In other words, to broaden their experiences so they have a palette of choices as they grow up and they can see why connecting to education is important. And once we've helped to broaden those experiences and those opportunities and their experiences of the world, then it's our job to turn those dreams into aspirations. And the difference for me between a dream and an aspiration is an aspiration is tangible. It's something that can actually happen. A child, for example, just saying, I want to be an astronaut is a dream. To turn that dream into an aspiration, you have to teach the child that they need to be in great physical condition. So physical education is important. They have to be really good with science. So science becomes really important, right? You see my point. And so then they understand, and what you're doing as an educator is you're building the rungs on a ladder, which allows the child to climb the ladder should they choose to turn the dream into an aspiration. That's our job. And again, what I think is really important about marketing is, how do we help our children to dream and how do we turn those dreams into aspirations? If you can answer those questions in your branding and marketing, you are going to be absolutely at the top of the game.
I'm specialized in school branding. I have just published the book El Secreto del Marketing Educativo, The Secret of Educational Marketing. I say teachers are the brand of the school, emphasizing that teachers have a transcendental role for the project, the brand, the communication, the reputation of the school. Do you think teachers have the necessary skills to communicate with parents and generate a climate of satisfaction? How can you help them take care of their personal branding?
I think this is, again, a really interesting question. I think teachers are incredible. Good teachers are incredible communicators. They do it every day, and they do it with a room full of very complex human beings, being children, right? So they are incredible, capable communicators. I think sometimes teachers feel they lack confidence when they're talking to parents, because I think so many teachers feel under scrutiny so much. And they also feel, particularly in certain cultures, and I know this is true in certain parts of Spain, where teaching is not regarded as a high-level profession. It's considered a low-level profession, which, by the way, is an unbelievable mistake. Education, and to be a great teacher, is one of the most skilled jobs on earth. And I defy anybody who's never worked in a school to go and stand in front of a room full of teenagers on a horrible Thursday afternoon and gain their attention, and they will realize how skilled that job actually is. So teachers need to have more confidence in themselves and what they do every day, all day. You know, it's really interesting. The big global polling company, the research polling company Ipsos Mori, produce every year in the UK what's called a veracity index. In other words, what they do is they ask normal people which professions in the country they trust the most. And the research has been running now, I think, for about 12 years. And there are about 40 professions that they ask people about. The number one profession every single year is the medical profession. Doctors and nurses are always number one. And number two, every single year of that research, has been teachers. Every single year, teachers are trusted only just below. Just so you know, politicians and journalists come at the bottom. But anyway, the point is, people trust teachers. They really trust their children's teachers. No matter what the media says and no matter what people say outside, they trust their children's teachers. So teachers need to have self-confidence. But the second thing is this. The school needs to work first on what its brand is internally before it works on what the brand is externally. When, again, I've researched really good branding in companies, it comes down to what I've said already, authenticity. Companies that project a brand to their customers which doesn't feel that way inside the company are never successful. The companies with the most successful brands have the same climate inside as they do the one they're projecting outside. So it's really important that the leadership in a school shares the branding development with the teachers, and it can be predicated on 3 words. First of all, is there real clarity? Does everyone in the school truly understand what the brand is, what the values and vision are? The second word is cohesion. In other words, do the behaviors of the people inside the school, the teachers, match the behaviors the school is trying to project outwards? And the third word is leadership. So does the leadership behave with the same attitudes and values that they're trying to create in the whole of the school? And I would argue that all teachers are leaders. So once you have a clarity of what it is we're trying to achieve, does everyone understand and behave in the same way? Are the behaviors of the teachers matching the expectations for the children and the parents? And I think if you can go through those 3 questions, clarity, cohesion, leadership, you can arrive at a place where teachers have a greater sense of empowerment in the development of the brand and the vision.
I had just written the mission, vision, and values for a school group. A friend who is a publicist and a university professor told me, I don't believe in those texts. They will be on a wall. No one will learn them by heart. I believe in sharing a dream, something that moves all teachers to desire to become the best in the city, in the country, and in the world, in something that is relevant to your way of education. Do you think it's possible to mobilize teachers with a dream? How should it be?
I mean, if you think about it, we've already talked today. Teachers choose to become teachers because of a dream. Most teachers choose to become teachers because of a dream. They dream about making the difference to people's lives. They dream about having an impact on children, wherever those children are, whoever those children are, whether they come from rich families or poor families, whether they're children with disabilities and disadvantage, or whether they're children with high ability and high achievement. Teachers come to the profession with that dream, and it's a great dream. How do we prepare our children to make the most of their future? How do we help those children to dream? How do we help those children to then turn those dreams into aspirations? Those are the crucial questions. So teachers, absolutely, it's in their heart. Almost unlike any other profession, a teacher's drive comes from here. It's not about how much money they make. It's not about how famous they become or how powerful they become. It's about how they can make a difference to human beings' lives. You know, the comment is absolutely right. The vision statement is not something written on a wall. It's useless. We all have the same vision statements. They're useless. They mean nothing. Every vision statement in every school pretty much says the same thing, and it means nothing. For me, the way you develop a vision is through the conversation about those dreams that teachers have. Why did you become a teacher? What do you want for your students? How are we going to make that happen? And then the vision should be felt in the building. Again, you know, earlier I said to you that if I had young children now, and I was looking for a school for my children, I'm not interested in the brochures and I'm not interested in the data. And even if they've got like a channel on YouTube or a really clever website, I don't care. What I'd do is I would go to the school, make an appointment. I would want to talk to the head teacher. I would want to see some of the teachers, and I would want to stand in the corridors and see the children and see how they're playing and interacting with each other, because it's that gives you the vision and the values. I go back to what I said about the vision and values at Grange. Living, learning, laughing. They're not clever words and they're not clever phrases, but I would always invite prospective parents into my school and say, what did you feel when you were here? And they'd all say things like, my gosh, there was so much celebration of life going on. There was such good learning going on, and there was so much laughter. That's when you know you've got a vision that really means something. How clever and glossy it is completely useless, because it doesn't, a vision statement changes nothing. Vision in action changes lives.
Richard, thank you very much for dedicating this time to us and sharing so much practical knowledge of school brand management that has been world renowned.